This is a redefinition of an immigration policy. There is no immigration policy. It is an open borders policy. They're just having to send Vice President Harris down there because they got a mess, and even the liberal media is saying they've got a mess.
President Biden has put in Vice President Harris, who was cackling about the border earlier, then downplaying the crisis and saying it was really the root cause problems that and what was happening in Guatemala and Honduras, and that's what you have to solve. And then by Wednesday, she's appointed to be the person who's going to deal with the problem inside the United States.
According to officials, Harris would focus on stemming the current flow of migrants and on developing a larger strategic partnership with Central American countries based on values of respect and shared values.
It's going to get worse because you've got a far left person who's going to be implementing far left policies. Kamala Harris's idea of open borders is going to be a disaster. Again, I go back to the fact that she's always ignored the people who are waiting in line. It's like waiting in line is not a good thing. She doesn't talk about it. She doesn't reward people who wait in line. She actually has policies that reward people who jump the line.
Take a listen. She walks him down a path that ICE is somehow the same as the Ku Klux Klan.
Why would we call them domestic terrorist group?
Because they tried to use fear and force to change political environment.
And what was the motivation for the use of fear and force?
It was based on race and ethnicity.
Right. And do you see any parallels?
I do not see any parallels between
I'm talking about perception.
Officers and agents.
I'm talking about perception.
I do not see a parallel between what is constitutionally mandated as it relates to enforcing the law.
Are you aware that there's a perception?
I see no.
Are you aware that there's a perception
that puts ICE in the same category as the KKK?
Clearly an outrage to listen to Vice President Harris, and I think it's hugely ironic that she is now essentially the head of ICE.
When someone says that about law enforcement in a general statement, ICE is the KKK.
Yeah,
what does that do to law enforcement?
It renders them absolutely as low as they can possibly go because you're telling them, you law enforcement, and she is making the statement about Ron Vitiello, the head of ICE, that you're the Ku Klux Klan. What do you think that does to the morale of law enforcement officers who are out there every day putting their lives on the line?
What we are witnessing is the emergence of the first presidency in U.S. history led by an infant. Only an infant would name a person who calls ICE agents the equivalent of the KKK. Only an infant would name such a person to head U.S. border policy during this crisis.
She is the queen of ignoring laws that she doesn't like. She doesn't listen to laws that are passed by Washington. She does this and she calls it sanctuary cities, this nice name where it says, you can ignore the law and I will protect you. I will be your comfort. Well, that's anti-democratic. The idea that you would tell people that they can ignore a law and be safe for ignoring that law is outrageous.
During the presidential debates in 2019, then Senator Harris, there was a group question asked about decriminalizing illegal border crossings. Her hand went up in favor of decriminalizing.
Law enforcement looks at that and then just throws up their hands and saying, what are we supposed to do? I mean, the vice president of the United States, then as a candidate for president, says, I think we should decriminalize it. Well, what do you do with it? You don't have a civil action against somebody who's come over the border illegally and sit down there and take depositions. These are crimes that are committed. They're criminal acts. They're in the United States Code. They're statutory provisions. You're an ICE agent. You're sworn to uphold the law.
The sanctuary policy, it's anti-democratic. It's ignoring our laws. And, if this is going to be the standard where whenever you're elected, you just get to ignore laws, we are in for an implosion of this country.
Bizarre person to pick. It's bizarre because in the Senate, she called ICE the KKK. As a candidate, she's open borders, thinks we should decriminalize border crossing, illegal border crossing, and by illegal aliens. So, she's going to somehow solve this crisis. And there's also a major humanitarian crisis that she was laughing about earlier in the week. It's the 600 people. They keep saying kids, but imagine 680 teenagers in a place built for 80. So, hundreds of them testing positive for COVID. So the how difficult that becomes for the government officials in place there.